Welcome to Guided by Third Wheel, the podcast. My name is Amber Ireland, and I'm here with my co-host, Jill Bucaro. Let's get started.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Guided by Third Wheel. Amber's already laughing at me. I am super excited for this episode because this is our 1-year podcasting anniversary episode. So we looked it up just now and we dropped our very first podcast on Friday, September 21st, 2023. This guy is coming out on Friday, September 20th. 2024. We've been doing this a whole year. What also feels really exciting to me is this will be our 27th episode, and 27 is my lucky number and a number that has a lot of meaning in my family. And so I just am super pumped. So yay. I thought what made sense maybe was for us to do a year in review. Let's talk about the podcast. We started the podcast kind of sharing a little bit about our individual journeys and our career journeys and development journeys. And I think we should recap and let everybody know what we've been up to for the last 365 days.
Yeah.
So, Amber, do you want to share updates first or maybe reflections on the podcasting journey?
I was excited to podcast. We had talked about podcasting for a really long time before we started it. We were like, this would be a fun thing to do. And we had some brainstorming, like what are the topics going to be and all the things. And I guess I just never thought that it would be as easy as it's been.
I agree. I thought there was like some kind of secret to podcasting. I thought we would have to like pre-script them, that we would have to plan them, that editing would take a lot longer. Well, editing doesn't take any time at all for me because Amber does it all. But I agree. I did not think it would be this easy.
No, I thought the hard part was going to be coming up with topics and having things to talk about for a whole 30, 45 minutes. And that really has been the easiest part.
I think we've kind of experienced this curve where at first we were talking for like an hour and 10 or 15 minutes. And people who are in the podcast game are all like, you girls gotta cut it down. Like, ain't nobody trying to listen to you talk for an hour or even 45 minutes. So I think we've even had to shorten
Which I think was a little bit of a lie because a lot of people listen to us talk for 45 minutes. And I think we're happy about it. So thank you if you are those people.
Let the record show there were plenty of listeners at the hour mark. I agree. That part was easy. And I have just been blown away by the number of people that listened, that have supported, that have continued to listen, that have passed it along. I mean, I have good friends, you have good friends, we have good friends and colleagues. And I was like, okay, like people are going to listen at first to like support us, you know? And it's just like that we consistently have people listening to the podcast, that we consistently have people being like, oh, I shared this with my class, or I shared this with my friend, or I shared this with my work colleague because I thought they would really like it. It's been like a really incredible and heartwarming and almost validating kind of journey, for sure.
Right. And the number of people who have said, I needed that exact thing just now, is when that came out and I heard that. That was exactly what I needed to hear.
So I always re-listen to our podcast. So Amber has to listen to it a million times as she edits it. But then on the day that it drops, I always typically listen to it first thing in the morning. And then I craft the Facebook post about it, right? Because God knows by the time it drops, I don't remember what the heck we talked about. And we might have done one or two other ones since then. And I sometimes feel like I listen to it and I'm like, this is what I needed today.
Yes.
Even though it was me and you from 3 weeks ago saying
I feel the same way when I edit sometimes. Sometimes I'll edit and, I'm sitting in the living room and my partner's milling about and I've got my headphones in and I'll just like stop and be like, that was did that come out of my mouth? Did that come out of Jill's mouth? Like, what? How did this happen? And
it like came out of my mouth, but somehow it hasn't stayed in me.
Right.
That it still feels earth-shattering.
Right.
And yeah, like the one about self-sabotage, which I think was a couple episodes ago, I was like, damn, did I need this today?
Right.
So the podcasting journey has 100%.
Yeah.
Been
It's definitely been, I feel like, a divinely inspired journey.
Yes.
Because it just has come so, I don't want to say it's like easy, like we don't have to do anything. I mean, we got to plan for it and show up and sit here and talk and all the things and do all of our own work. Because that really is how we have been able to do these podcasts, is because we consistently do our own work and we're like, oh shit, here's like a big thing that like I had a hard time with and I'm hearing other people having a hard time with. Let's talk about it. We might not have all the answers, but we can at least like raise some awareness around some of these things, right? But yeah, I feel like when I get the feedback from other people, I feel like it is so divinely inspired that I didn't come up with that topic because of my ego and what I know. I came up with that topic because that was what really needed to go out on the day that podcast was going to be released.
Absolutely. And just to hear that feedback from people, to know that with myself. And I feel like I bring a lot of topics to the podcast that it's like, these are things that I'm struggling with, right? And I'm just going to take, Amber and all of you along on my therapy journey, right? Like while I process them out. So that part has been a 10 out of 10. Love the podcast journey. Our intention is to continue podcasting, to stay at this cadence of every other week, which feels like work, like you said. We got to keep at it most weeks, but definitely feels manageable.
Yeah. And I think moving forward, and we really haven't talked about this, but I'm just going to go ahead and say it, and we can delete it if we need to.
Perfect.
But I think moving forward, what would be a fun thing to do would be to have people ask questions that they are like, I'm dealing with this in my own life, or I have dealt with this in my own life. What are your thoughts?
Yes.
Because if one person is having those thoughts, then probably a lot of people are. And I think that would be fun to just get a sound bite from somebody to be able to put that on the podcast and be like, hey, I'm dealing with this. This is how I take this. What are your thoughts? And just using that as a way to
springboard into some topics.
Yeah.
I love that. I would definitely love to hear, especially from our more consistent people, what are topics that we're missing? What are our blind spots? What are other people going through, right? That could definitely use some exploration over the next year.
And also, people will ask me things sometimes and they're like, I know that you're going to have the right answer for this because of this, this, and this. And I'm like, really? I'm the person you came to? So I have blind spots around what other people perceive as my wisdom, right?
Sure.
And so if there's something that you want us to talk about, because you're like, I think you would be able to help me. I think you're further along in that part of your journey than I am, and I want to hear about that. Yeah, I think that would be really cool to do.
Yeah, and we could talk about it, muddle through it, talk about our experiences with it. For sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so podcast has been awesome. What about just you as a professional, as a human this last year? How do you feel like the year has been?
I feel like it's been a good year. From September to now, there's been a lot of change in my life, and I feel like I've navigated it well.
Okay.
Like, I say that there's a lot of change, and then I think, but I don't feel real off kilter. And so that lets me know that I must be rolling with it instead of what would have normally been, which is there was a lot of change, and I'm over here white knuckling my life.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I've had changes, everything from my health, my own thought patterns, letting go of old stories. I mean, just all kinds of things. Changes in my job, changes in my role, changes in all kinds of things, really. This is a time where I've also kind of unwound some old stories, because normally if things would change in my life, I would just expect the tower moment to come. And I think I was almost creating it myself because I was expecting it always. I'm like, well, if one thing's going wrong, certainly everything will.
Sure.
And then I'm like, and if it's not going to, I'll just set fire to it all. And I didn't do that this time. As changes have come, I've been like, okay, well, here's a stable part in my life, and that can remain stable even though this is not, right? And then just being able to go back and forth from that has been really huge, probably in the last 2 years, more than one, but I just feel like this year it's just felt solid.
Yeah, I agree with that. I was just thinking when you were talking, it was interesting for me, kind of these last 365 days were probably the first time in my professional life that I didn't have a lot of change. So for the last almost 5 years, I've been building the program, right? Where I'm at, and I started out as one person We're now a team of 16 people, and that grew very quickly, developing all the processes. All of that was a lot, right? And it was like constant movement, constant change, and then like pushing. And we really kind of had the team like organized where it needed to be by like summer of 2023. So for the first time probably ever in my professional career, I had a year of maintaining. Until like the last couple weeks, I didn't make any new hires. I didn't add anything new. I had one person go on maternity leave, which created some changes like in my day-to-day, but that's it. I mean, no new people, no new programs, no new anything. And that was really... It was really interesting for me, right?
What's that like?
You're like, do I hate you? And that was cool. And then just in the last 3 or 4 weeks, there have been a lot of changes. So I personally am moving on to a new career endeavor at the end of this calendar year, which I'm really excited about. So that change kind of happened. And then really for the first time too, I had people that directly worked for me like quit on me kind of unexpectedly, which is okay, all for good reasons. But I was thinking about it because to your point, Amber, this is something that I think a year ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago would have spun me out of control. I really had 4 positions vacated for various reasons in a period of 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Which is a lot, which is a quarter of the positions that I supervise. And you know, and I think normally I would have just melted to the ground, right? All the old stories of why me, God forbid, I'm moving on to a new job. Why does this always happen to me? Why is everything so hard? Why couldn't my last 90 days look like how I thought my last 90 days were going to look like? And I mean, did I have some stressful days? I think my days were stressful because they were jam-packed with like 37 more interviews than I was expecting in my schedule and the logistical things that way. But I looked right at my colleague when we were talking about it and I said, truly, I have spent way too much of my life clinging to things that were not meant for me. And if these people are leaving and if this is the direction that we're going in, that what is meant for us will not pass us by.
Right.
And I just can't worry about it. You know?
Right.
Do I have some feelings here and there? Sure I do. But I wasn't just like faking it till I made it, right? I think a year or two ago I will be like, that which is meant for us will not pass us by. It will not pass us by. You know, like I'm trying to tell myself that, but really inside I'm like, what the fuck? Why? But I truly was just like, yeah, it sucks. Like it's going to add more to-dos to the to-do list. But clearly it was not meant to look like this anymore, you know? And it's been interesting to see as we're doing interviews, as we're thinking about restructuring, every single time I'm like, this is better. This makes more sense. This will better equip us to do what we need to do. And just to your point, to have that upheaval happen and not have myself internally have the upheaval, it almost feels weird.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. When you were talking about that first, in my professional life over the last year, there have been lots of changes. I haven't moved jobs or anything like that, but we've just had lots of changes at work. And so when you talk about having people leave the organization, not had a ton of people leave the organization, but had to hire a lot of people.
Right.
And got ghosted a lot of times where we were on the path to hire and then where did you go? You accepted this job. Where did you go?
Right.
Right. And we're starting to do services and we don't have staff. Right. And we were actively hiring and I'm like calling anybody that I know. I'm like, if you know a person, send them to me. Right. So we were doing that. But what I will say is during that time, I didn't go back into that old story that this is my fault, that this is happening. I was like, you know, we're going to get there. We're going to get the people that we need to get. And now that we're here, we have the literal best team. And when I talk about team, I'm not talking about just some social workers. I'm talking about social work, counselors, peers, nurses. We have got the best team of people. And had we taken all those people that ghosted us, I don't know that that would have been.
Right. And it's like you have to trust the process,
right?
And there's a difference between saying, I trust the process because I know that's what I'm supposed to say, and truly just trusting the process, even when the process doesn't look how you think it's going to look. And I think that's a thing too, and we've talked about this before, is those of us who are smart or who are intuitive or who are good at reading people and situations, I think a lot of the time we can fairly accurately predict how things will unfold, right? And so I think it feels really jarring to us when things do not unfold the way that we thought they would. Right? I made the decision kind of near the end of summer that I was going to take this new position. And I'm like, and everyone will remain exactly where they are. I have figured out precisely how we will all be organized. I'm not going for another 4 months. It will be the smoothest, most controlled, most perfect transition ever. Right? And the universe was like, LOL, chill. And I think, thank you for the lesson again.
Right.
Thank you for the growth opportunity again. But I recovered from that. It's not going to look like how I thought it would pretty quickly. Right. And I wonder if I can move into the space where I can just accept that I will never know how it's going to go.
Right.
You know?
And but it's going to be perfect when it's done.
Exactly. And it is. It already is. It has spurred us to make changes around organization and positions that could have been made probably a year ago. Or maybe probably couldn't have been made a year ago, honestly, because a year ago we needed to be where we were.
Right.
And so just to have this opportunity now feels good. And to watch myself, am I tired? Yes. Has it been a grueling couple of weeks between work and travel and personal life? Yes. But like overall, I still feel really peaceful about the transition. Whereas, and you've known me for a long time, Amber. Can you imagine me 3 or 4 years ago if a quarter of my staff either were terminated or put in their notice in 10 days?
Yeah.
I would have melted like the fucking Wicked Witch of the West. I would have melted to the ground.
And then you would have worked every hour of every day.
I would have worked every hour of every day. I would have stomped around reminding everybody how hard I was working and how terrible it was that everyone had done this to me, right? And I just, you know, and I have been stomping around a little bit like, Jesus Christ, I am working a lot of hours, but I just don't feel crazy about it.
Yeah. Another thing over this past year related to work that, as we were talking, I realized, you know, we've done these leadership trainings. We created our leadership training quite a while ago now. And I've always wanted that to be implemented fully into an organization. And how do we use that to build culture? How do we really have a good top-down culture and organization? And as we made the changes this year, I feel like that has really been something that has been embraced and implemented.
Nice.
And I've been able to, you know, train all my managers in that way. And we've been working on culture, and we've been working on good support for the employees and self-care and all of these pieces. And watching this unfold and watching people be like, yeah, it really is good to work here. And starting to let go of the old story that the other shoe is going to drop somehow because they've come from somewhere where it has been, it has just been beautiful to watch. And I realized, you know, I didn't do all of that. Everybody made a choice to do it. Anybody could come in and do whatever they want. I can't make you be nice, right? But we are more able to have open conversations about, hey, are you making that decision because it's in the best interest of the participant, or are you making that decision because of your feelings? And actually having a real conversation and somebody realizing, oh, I'm just afraid.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Exactly.
And I mean, it has been the most beautiful thing to watch. And that's something that I've wanted for a really long time. Like, it's been a vision in my head of how can we do this? How can we make it so that organizations function, get things done, provide great services, and the employees are supported? And people want to come to work and they don't hate everyone that's around them and walk around and you know, gossip and do all of the things, right? And we just got such a wonderful team, and they are so committed to making sure that that workplace culture stays good.
That's awesome. And I think too, when you're saying that, because I was thinking about how many changes your role has gone through in the last year, your organization has gone through in the last year. And then I think about some of these good byproducts of that, right? Because I wonder now, and I want people to almost like think about their lives, because I think about all the things that happened this year for me professionally, right? All the things that happened this year for me personally, right? Both like the really beautiful, unexpected surprises, the good things you're just talking about. Oh my gosh, this vision that you have truly been talking to me about for years has finally come to fruition.
Right.
And then all the crazy things, all of this happening. I think about that for you. I think about that for me. And I think about like us sitting in this very same room, recording our first podcast. And if someone had come and opened up a little scroll, right, and been like, Jill, here's all the shit that's going to happen in the next 365 days, right? Both professionally and personally.
Right.
Here are the cool things. Here are the devastating things, right? Here are the fucked up things. Here are, you're going to have these really high highs that are going to crash into these really low lows, right? You're going to have all of these changes that, like some of the work changes I think about you navigating, Amber. How am I ever even going to do that, right? Like what? And it's just crazy because every single year, we experience the things that had never even occurred to us we were going to experience. We overcome the things that if you gave them to us as a list, we'd be like, we would never be able to do that. Like,
I'm not signing up for that. Thanks.
Are you kidding me? And we're just like chilling here, like basically what feels like the same as we were a year ago. And that's just, I think, the beauty, right, of the evolution and of the growth and of doing the work.
Right. I was thinking about it the other day because some of the conversations that I can have at work with people right now, the self-care training that I do for people, I've started putting a little guided meditation in the end of it. And we sit and do that together. Amber 2 years ago would have never felt comfortable to say those things in open forum, to be that vulnerable, nor would I have had the skill to do it like I can now. And so really me doing my own work has helped me to connect more with other people just on a human level. I mean, not even me being a director or whatever, just as a human. It has helped me connect with people so much easier and be able to help mentor people who want to grow because I've done my own work. And I would have never been in that spot had I not done it. I'm so grateful that I've stayed on my own journey through all of this instead of abandoning that because other things were happening in my life.
Exactly. I'm with you 100% on that. I think it has always been hard for me, like a mindset. I really used to see the world and used to see growth and almost like these stairs and these plateaus, right? I'm going to work, gain these skills, and then I'll be able to do X, Y, and Z on the plateau, right? And then I'm going to like work, gain these skills and like kind of get to the next rung on the ladder, almost, so to speak. And it's so much more of an evolving. I say all the time things like there is no destination happiness, right? You don't all of a sudden get there. And I think growth is the same way, that you are growing, and you're picking up these things along the way that you don't even realize that you are. Whether it's the connection, whether it's the knowing, whether it's, wow, this obstacle that would have stopped me in my tracks 3 years ago, it didn't even register in my brain that this was an obstacle this time, right? It felt like a bad day, not a bad month this time, and I think that perspective giving, and that's why I like that we're looking back at this past year now, it's just interesting, right? To think about the things that I managed with very little hitch in my giddy up that I don't think I could have handled a couple of years ago. And it's like you said, it's because of the inner work that I've done.
Yeah. As you were talking about how you saw personal growth before of work, sit on the plateau. I think for me, there was a period of my life where I didn't even think about personal growth.
Oh God.
My growth was only by virtue of other people.
Right, like having to overcome.
Well, no, my growth was like, I'm going to attach myself here to this person, place, or thing. I'm going to attach myself here to this. That's my growth, right? Because I'm able to do this with these people, that's my growth. And so it was always assimilating to whatever was going on in order to grow. And I feel like finally now I've done the inner work to where my growth is my own. And it doesn't matter if I am here in this house, if I am in another country, who I'm with, my growth is stable within myself. And that has been wonderful because I have the confidence to do more in other situations instead of being like, oh, I don't have this crutch and this crutch, so I can't do it.
Right. I feel that same way because I think what you were saying, my growth was always motivated by external forces.
Right.
It was, oh, I want to be with this person, so I'll do this, right? Or, oh, I want to be perceived this way at work, so I'll do this. Or I want to like break into this group of people or professionals or whoever, so I'll do this. And I found myself too this year just saying no a lot more because I do feel I'm like aligned and tapped into my own personal growth. And it's like, no, this doesn't serve me.
Right.
The orientation is less of how can I twist myself into a pretzel to meet the expectations of everyone and everything around me, and more of, nope, that's not what makes sense for me. That's not what makes sense for my self-care, my rest, my brain, my stress level, my whatever. So it's a no for me. And that definitely feels like growth. And sometimes, and we've talked about this in previous podcasts, it feels uncomfortable sometimes.
Yeah.
You do the super hard work of breaking the chains of the old patterns, right? And then it just feels a little weird. I think the past couple weeks, I felt a little stressed that I don't feel more stressed. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I felt a little stressed that I don't feel more stressed. I had a big, I don't even know what I would call it, like a big kind of personal romantic situation catastrophe, right? Like, that's dramatic, but it was crazy. 8 or 9 months ago. It sucked, and I was sad, and I was in a little bit of a funk, and it was just a whole weird, like, learning about me and about them and about everything. But I think sometimes should I be sadder? Should I have more feelings about that? Is it weird that it doesn't seem like it's affecting me at all anymore? That there's no emotional attachment? And I think that's a good cautionary tale to people who are doing the work, and maybe I'm just saying this to make myself feel better, but I really sometimes get myself amped that I'm not feeling and behaving and reacting the way that I used to feel, behave, and react.
Right. Well, when you let those feelings kind of move through you, there's less that you have to do. You're like, oh yeah, I feel sad. Okay, I'm going to sit here and feel sad for a little bit. All right, well, that sucked. Let me move on. I'm not going to sit here and feel sad forever. That's dumb. And you let those feelings move through instead of probably what you did before, where it wasn't like you were letting the feelings move through. You're like, these are my feelings. I'm holding them forever.
Right, exactly. And I will let them inform every interaction I ever have. And I think some other things too. I've drawn a couple pretty, I would say, like, firm boundaries. Probably for a normally functioning human, they wouldn't feel like firm boundaries, but I've just had some hard boundaries that I've drawn just in the last week. It feels good, but it doesn't feel really hard, and it doesn't feel really good. It just feels like how it should be. Right. You know what I mean? And I think that you talk all the time about, like, the middle path, right? Like, things don't have to feel really hard, and they don't have to feel euphoric. Yeah. They can just be, oh yeah, like, good job, Jill. And and I think sometimes I'm waiting for that, like, emotional hit.
You're like, where's the drama? Where is it?
The drama? Well, yes. And so I think, that's been the beauty kind of this year, is maybe a bit more time spent on the middle path. Yeah.
I've also experienced similar, where I have to reevaluate. Am I bored? Am I unsatisfied with what's going on? And I'm like, no. I'm really not. What is this exactly? And it's like, oh, this is contentment. Well, shit. What do you do with that?
Weird. Like, what do you do with contentment? What do you do with a relationship that doesn't have the high highs and the low lows, right?
Right.
What do you do with being boundaried enough to be like, man, work on the outside looks like it's blowing up, but really I think it's going to be just fine. It's a bizarre feeling.
Yeah.
And just being able, like we were talking about too, just to be self-guided, right? Not influenced by everything else.
Right.
I think that's been a huge change for me, which has been cool and weird.
It's always weird when you level up and you're like, oh. And then you have to think back. Once you get there, you start reflecting on old decisions and old patterns and old things that you've done that you thought were good. You thought, I made a really solid choice here. And then you look back and you're like, oh, shit. When you thought you made a choice that was truly about you and what you wanted and you were being authentic, and you look back and you're like, I mean, I kind of wanted that. And also this person wanted it, and this person wanted it, and this person wanted it.
And I thought this is what these people wanted me to do.
So I decided I wanted it too, right?
Yeah. And that's the beauty of leveling up. And that's the beauty. It's like when you always get older and you're like, oh my God, I can't imagine what it'll be like to be 30, right? Or to be 35, or, even when I was younger, to be 25, you know? And that's like how leveling up is, right? Because like now I'm like, look at me, queen of the middle path. You know what I mean? So calm, cool, and collected. Well, no, nobody could ever describe me as calm, cool, and collected. Like a year or two from now, I'll be like, look at the wild ass decisions that version of Jill was making. I think that's the fun part. too.
But the other thing is I look back and I'm like, yeah, I thought I was doing what I should be doing, but I'm glad I did it, because also if I wouldn't have, I wouldn't know what I know now. But it also led me down a path of learning that I probably needed in order to get to this place, and being able to kind of look back on things that either I thought I did well or things that really sucked, and be like, all right, now looking back, that needed to happen. That needed to happen for me to get here today.
For sure. And when you believe that the journey is guided, that it is divinely inspired, that we are here this time around to learn what we need to learn and do what we need to do and connect with who we need to connect with, I always have to believe that, right? What a painful time. What a very interesting choice I made, right? What a fuck up. What a this, what a that. But without any of those things, big or small, we wouldn't be here.
Right.
And I believe, and I don't know if everybody believes this, but I believe here is exactly where I am supposed to be.
Right.
So, what a twisted little journey it has been, and I'm sure will be. Yeah, I find so much comfort in truly believing that, yeah, here is where I am supposed to be.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And we'll do a podcast a year from now and be like, wow, what about
silly,
that year?
Those silly girls. I know.
How about that?
Gosh, don't you wish that somebody could come in? I would just want that, just to be like, here's what's going to happen the next 365
I
days.
don't want to know.
You don't want? I would want to know.
I'd hide somewhere.
I don't want to know always, but I would like a couple times where something would happen. Yeah. And it reminds me of that show. Did you ever know the show or the premise of the show, That's So Raven?
I've watched That's So Raven. Yeah.
So That's So Raven is like a Disney show, right? And she has this gift of she's able to see things that happen in the future, right? So Raven always sees something that happens in the future, and then she spends the whole episode trying to prevent it, right?
Right.
But her efforts to prevent it is what makes the scenario actually play out, right? And it was funny because it was mostly like supposed to be funny, right? Silly Raven trying to stop it, but I think about that show all the time, and what a lesson they were teaching us. You know what I mean? I do believe that some things are fated, and some things are meant to be, and some things are here for our growth. And so whenever I'm like, oh my God, if I had only known, I would have tried to change it. It's like, no. It's like, That's So Raven. You can't change it.
No. You could change it that time. It's still going to come around.
It'll come back around. Yeah. Or you fucking with it is what created that scenario in the first place.
Absolutely. So we've had a good year. Lots of growth, lots of changes, lots of walking that middle path with the changes so that we're not all off kilter all year long. That's been nice.
Less high highs and less low lows, which I think is
sure.
good. I'd be curious to hear from anybody who listens to this when we post it on the socials. What has changed for you this year? What have you picked up along the way, right? What has been good? What has been hard?
Right.
All of that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. And you've heard our struggles all year long in this podcast. We've talked about all the things that have been going on every other week. So if you've also experienced some of those things, or maybe you heard something on the podcast and you're like, man, that really turned my head a little bit and made me think about things a little bit differently and change my path, we'd love to hear about that as well.
Yes. All right. You want to pull a card for us?
Yes.
Which ones are these?
So these are new cards. I don't even know if these are out yet because I get some cards that haven't been released yet, but these are called Angelic Activation Oracles by Kyle Gray. So I also have another Kyle Gray deck that I really like. So this is a newer card deck here. Let's take a deep breath together and set the intention that we'll receive exactly what we need from this podcast today and from this card pull. And that hopefully this will give you a chance to also reflect on your previous year and the growth that you've had there, and maybe where you want to grow further in the coming year.
Yeah.
Here she is. Oh, that's nice. This one is called Healing Rays. It says healing is not linear. Healing happens today, not tomorrow. Angels of healing are surrounding you at this time, and in order to support their mission of guiding you to a state of wholeness, it's essential for you to move out of resentment and regret and into a state of trust. Trust in the higher powers that are surrounding you now. They are on your team, and they are working with you, for you, and through you. And the activation here is I support my own experience of healing. So I think this kind of goes right along with what we've been talking about and talking about our own self-care journeys and our own personal growth and our own healing, and understanding that healing is not necessarily linear, but you are always supported in that healing journey.
Yes. And I think not only is healing not linear, nothing is linear.
Oh, no.
Nothing at all.
Nothing.
Not our healing, not our growth, not our years, not anything at all.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys. Have a wonderful week, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye. Thank you for listening to another episode of Guided by Third Wheel, the podcast. We would be honored if you would like, rate, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Until next time, be well.